this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and solve a linear equation in one variable where you have two versions of your variable hanging out. They just need to be gathered up, and you have some fractions going on. The group that this skill belongs to is algebra. The skill itself, like I just said, is solving linear equations in one variable where you have two occurrences of your variable with some fractions added in for good measure. Prerequisite skills for doing this type of problem: you have to know what the lowest common denominator is. You have to know multiplication, division, addition, subtraction properties of equality, which basically means you can add, subtract, multiply, or divide to both sides of an equation and retain equality. And finally, you need the skill of distribution, be able to distribute a constant to a couple terms. So let's go ahead and try to solve this one. First thing I'm going to note here is that this is an equation and I have a fraction going on. I don't even bother looking at the rest of this. When I see a fraction, I immediately shy away from wanting to solve it immediately and instead think about the fact that I can get rid of that fraction as long as I multiply both sides by the LCD. So if I look at the LCD for this equation, it's only 5. That's the only denominator that actually occurs there. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 5. And on the left-hand side, you can see that 5 over 5 cancels nicely. On the right-hand side, I'll just multiply that negative 2s times 5. A little note here, and every once in a while I like to sneak these into these tutorials, is that negative 5 is really just a negative 2 times s times 5 is really a negative 2 times s times 5. And we can use the commutative property of multiplication to sit the 5 next to the negative 2 there. So all I'm doing is just swapping positions between the 5 and the s. And now I can write that as negative 2 times 5 is just a negative 10, and then the s. Just as a side note there, I do like to write that every once in a while. So we have this 40 minus 8s. No need to write parentheses anymore over here on the left-hand side because there's nothing multiplying it anymore. And on the right-hand side, we have that negative 10s. Now I'll go ahead and add 8s to both sides using the addition property of equality. And when I do that, I get 40 is equal to a negative 2s. Right? Negative 8s plus 8s, those two cancel. And then finally, I'll divide both sides by negative 2. Again, using one of the properties of equality, this time a division property of equality. And this will imply that s is equal to a negative 20. That is our final answer. Just highlight that and we're done.